Hello and welcome to IT 101 Prof. And welcome back to my part 2 of pivot tables. If you are watching this video and haven't watched part 1, you can see in my notes where you can access your part 1 video so that you can follow up with me over here on part 2. In my part 2 of pivot tables, I'm going to show you some of the other options available to analyze and design your pivot tables, or some of the tools that you can use to make your pivot table look different, look better, look much more cleaner. So what we did in my last tutorial was we have a table of a company that sells outdoor equipment in a few locations, and that's the data that I'm trying to summarize. I'm trying to summarize the transactions that happened at each of these locations. So I'm going to go ahead and change my pivot table here to display the total amount of items sold in each of my location. And I'm going to change let me just change a few values over here. I want my total amount to be in values. And this is how I want it. And I'm going to change my value settings to have a currency format. Hit OK. And OK one more time. So here you can see I have listed my transactions, the total amount of transactions for each of my items, for each of my stores. And I'm going to move the item down over here to the rows section, and you can see how differently things are displayed in this view over here. So let's go through these two menus. So when you are clicked inside a pivot table, that is when these two menus or these two tools will appear for you to make changes to. So the first one I want to show you is this slicer tool. If you click on insert slicer, and what slicer allows you to do is create very quick and fast filtering. So for example, let's say I would like to filter things on, let's say item. Hit OK. So I have a quick filter tab over here. Right now the blue shade tells me that everything is selected. So if I only want to look at things I sold, let's say look at car rack. You click on the car rack filter, and now you're only looking at data for that particular item. If you want, I can press the control key and select more than one items. So let me try this one more time. Right, so I press the control key on your keyboard. If you're using a MacBook, and you're using the Windows side of things, then you may want to use the Control Alt key or the Control Option key. Right, so that's my filtering option using my slicer. Now notice when I'm out of my slicer, back into my pivot tables, I've got my pivot table tools. When I click on my slicer, I've got my slicer tools where I can change the colors, right, change the options on my slicer as well. Let's go back to my pivot table, analyze. In my previous video, you saw that the refresh icon and what it does. If I move over to the right side over here, there are these three options that are toggled on right now. Let's just quickly go through each of them. If I toggle off field list, notice my right window, my pivot table window disappears. Even though I'm clicked inside a pivot table, that window is gone. To bring it back on, click on field list, and I'm back up again. The plus minus over here, this controls these little minuses or collapse and expand tabs. Now, if I were to print this file, it wouldn't make sense to have those minuses and pluses over here. So that's where the plus minus buttons help you and allows you to take care of those options out of here. Put them back on. And the field headers, if I take them off, notice my row labels that I had over here is disappear. I'm going to put them on and watch this heading over here come up. So that's what the field headers will do over here. All right, let's go to the design tab. On the design tab, there's a bunch of different options. So one, let's pick the pivot table styles. So quickly, if you want to change the color options of your pivot tables, if I just mouse over, you will see here how I can quickly change the way the color scheme is applied to my tables or to my pivot table over here. I can have banded columns. which again, in this example, it wouldn't affect anything. Now, these four things over here can really change how your data is displayed. So for this example, I'm going to go back and move the item to my columns. Go back down here. And let's click on Design tab. So first thing is subtotals. If I hit Do Not Show Subtotals, I'm not going to see anything over here again because I do not have any subtotal information available for this example that I'm using. But if I were to have subtotals in between, let's try it one other way. Let me bring item back in, and now I'm going to do show all subtotals. So what this does is it gives me subtotals for California, Oregon, Washington, and then my grand total for all of them. Go back in again, do not show, big on. Go back in, show all subtotals at top. So you'll see my subtotals coming up at the top rather than at the bottom. This is the bottom one, right? Then I can also fiddle with my grand totals. If I turn it off for rows and columns, watch, my subtotals are gone from here. Or I could toggle them on for my columns, which is this one over here. I don't have a lot of columns going on over here, which is why I cannot use the rows option for now. I can also change my report layout to show it in compact form, outline form, tabular form, right? Again, depending on what kind of data you have, you may want to pick and choose the kind of report you want. All right. So that's quickly going through PivotTable tools, the Analyze tab and the Design tab, and some of the functions, some of the options available to edit or to work with on your pivot tables. Thank you for watching.